Welcome back to The Nuance. Today I am talking with Dana, who I worked with starting in or back in 2023 into the summer of last year, 2024. And we had, I believe, if I remember correctly, done a lot of work on just kind of establishing some consistency across your weeks as a whole from a nutritional standpoint, because at that time you were in the quite common experience of relatively low calorie intake during the week, relatively restrictive Monday through Friday, and then that led to kind of naturally the weekends being somewhat all out, kind of difficult to maintain and to manage. Getting a grasp of that led to over. Do you remember how long it was? How long did we actually work together for? I know that we got
It
down
was
roughly
9
10
months.
pounds over that 9 months. So got a good grasp and handle of that or on that while we worked together for those 9 months. And between now and then, kind of just been off on your own, living life. And so very curious as to how things are going, what you've been doing, and at this point, what you're trying to accomplish, if there's any new struggles that have come back up, or if those old ones have resurfaced again.
So mostly the same struggle. I'm still pretty steady. I haven't gained any weight, or I haven't gained like a lot of weight back, but it's still more. I have a social a
You have a
I
life?
have a social life. I guess I don't have kids, and I'm older. I'm 36, almost 36. So when most of my friends, like, they've got kids and whatnot, so it's just me and my husband, and we're just living
Using the
life,
time that you have.
hanging out. So, yeah, so my struggle has not really ever been my workouts or gym time or any of that. I'm pretty consistent with that, but it's more of it's not even overeating because, I do, my meal prep breakfast, meal prep lunches. So I'm consistent with that. It's just, we'll go out to dinner and we'll just, order several things like tapas style kind of. So it's really hard to track that because you're having a bite of this and a bite of that, and you're not having like a meal. So I always kind of know like my base, and like what my base calories are, like my lunch, breakfast, and snacks are 900 calories, about 80 to 90 grams of protein. So like I know what that is, but then
Is
it's
this
like
like an
for
everyday?
dinner,
You
pretty
kind of eat
much.
that same way all the time?
Yeah, and on the weekends, I have gotten a little better on the weekends where I'm still getting my protein and fiber in, because before it was just like
Literally
it was
whatever.
kind of yeah, it was kind of like no carbs during the week and all carbs on the weekend, but
Right.
I eat carbs now, thanks to you.
Yeah,
Uh,
we worked on getting those in. I think it
yeah,
was a struggle first couple of weeks. Like I had to bring it up, like, hey, this is going to help
yes,
you in those workouts and the
yes,
runs that you would have to
yes,
do. You know what I mean?
yes, yes. So yeah, I'm not back to, but I eat carbs now. So it's kind of easier, kind of a little more consistent during the week also, but still just, we'll have a drink here or dessert there. And then also my husband went to culinary school, so he's in kind of the like restaurant chef kind of world. So when you have friends like that, everybody's always feeding you like
And it's always
constantly,
dense.
and it's
Good
always
food, right? Like
good. It's
tasty, but
always
it's
so
the dense
good.
stuff.
Yes, yes, it's so good. So it's kind of, just difficult to even just to be in those situations. And also, I genuinely like love food. I love to eat. Like, I know you always talk about like how you just put whatever in a bowl and like make it,
Yeah.
and you basically
I'm a
eat to
horrible example.
survive.
Yeah.
Well, I live to eat. Like, I do. I love my food. Like, I was joking the other day. I have my emotional support truffles here with
Bowl of
me.
snacks, truffles. There you go.
Their chocolate truffles are so good. Costco, by the way. So we have a lot of them.
No, I
So
won't
I'm
let Catherine listen to this because she'll buy them. She just bought Heavenly Hunk brownies, which those don't, again, just like you mentioned, they don't bother me. If they're around and
yeah.
I look at it, I'm like, that won't please me all that much. I won't need it. But I am an anomaly in that regard. I fully understand that and am transparent about, like, I understand that I am not the basis for what I'm going off of when I try and help people work through these things. But yeah, I get that. What you are exposed to pretty commonly, frequently, are going to be those things that are they're dense from a food perspective.
Yes. So that's kind of my main thing right now, I guess.
So just hearing you say that, I mean, obviously I always have a unique perspective because I am an objective third party, right? I'm not living your life. I'm not in your shoes. I'm not experiencing your day to day or the struggles that you have, physiologically or psychologically. But that sounds, and maybe it's because you segued into it with like hey, I actually haven't gained any weight back. Hey, I'm actually pretty stable, basically where we left off after losing 10 pounds. And you are doing the living, right? Like you are eating very structured, but also flexibly structured, right? To me, it almost sounds like it's working. You know what I mean? As long as there isn't a underlying, well, I would actually, just to throw out a random number, like rather be 10 pounds lighter as well. Like, would you say the past 7 months, there's been an expectation to have continued losing and you haven't? Because if that's not the case, I'm almost kind of like, well, what's the
No,
problem?
no. So I've gained like 3 pounds, like 3 pounds back. But that was kind of almost before we stopped working together. Because remember, I lost the 10 pounds and then I kind of went back because, it was summer and I was having my social life.
Right.
I
Life,
had,
life.
yeah, and which that's a trend for me. Like, yeah, my trend is January. I kind of, not get back into it because I never fall out of it. It's just easier because everybody else is doing it. So people aren't constantly bringing snacks to work and bringing donuts and bringing cake and all of that stuff that is like happening around the holidays. So it's so much easier to stay consistent, and I do that until my birthday. My birthday is May 5th, which is like the height of springtime. We're about to get in the summer. So kind of like from my birthday on, it's kind of either a plateau or I kind of gain a little bit back. And that's kind of what happened when we were working together because my birthday, I went to Portugal and then,
Vacation.
yes, vacation. And then we came back and a couple months later we went on another, which I travel all the time. So like that's not that uncommon for me to travel. A couple months later we went on, but it was like another big vacation. And then we moved and it was like, so I guess I've been having trouble like kind of getting back into it and just feeling good because then it's not about the number on the scale, but like I know I felt good when I was 140. I know I felt great when I was 130, and now I'm like pushing 170 again and I'm like, ugh, like I'm feeling uncomfortable again. So like I feel like because when we worked together, I had gotten, it was like 165, like
Believe that.
163 almost.
Right.
Because
Right before it started to come back up a little bit.
yeah, right before. So and I was starting to feel like really good. Like like girls will understand this. You probably won't understand this, but like when you wear your jeans and you stand up, you're like, okay, I'm fine. But then like you can't wear them to dinner because you can't sit comfortably in them. You like, so
I think
so
that's more that
yeah,
I just don't wear jeans very often type of thing. I am in very
yeah.
stretchy pants right now, as always.
Yeah, I mean, me too. But sometimes I want to wear well, I don't ever want to wear real pants, but sometimes the occasion calls for real pants, and instead of wearing like leggings and like a large nice sweatshirt or something, because that's all that I feel comfortable in.
So, with it being the first week of the year, we're
Hmm.
January 8th now at this point, but you're very much in that kind of season and phase where your trend begins, right? And
Hmm.
so naturally it would almost start to happen now where you get back to
Hmm.
those habits and behaviors that you probably consistently followed through with when you were 140, 130, right?
Hmm.
Certainly when you were 165, 163 last year.
Hmm.
But my thought here is this year would theoretically be different given that you changed the approach in which it happened last year from the, I'm assuming a little bit here, so correct me if I'm wrong, but before last year, that trend would have occurred from the very restrictive no carb
Hmm.
approach Monday through Friday, obviously more flexible weekends, but still like it was almost crash diet approach into the summer or into your birthday and then come back out of it. When we started and worked through that into your birthday, we ate more carbs. We brought food up. And I'm actually looking at your data from the entire time, like the average consumption from when we worked together. And your average intake was over 2,100 calories per day. Average carbs are right around 200. Certainly some weeks were lower than that and some were higher, but averaging 200 carbs and 90 grams of fat, which in my opinion is a decent amount of food, like a very solid base, especially to have been losing for over half of the time that you were at that amount,
Hmm.
which leads you to a place now where, again, assuming a little bit here, if over the last 6-7 months you've been eating similarly, maybe a little bit more if your weight has, stayed slightly elevated, if you're coming closer to 170 now, but you'd be starting from a place where, yeah, the trend is repeating, but the way you go about it is completely different. And maybe that's the onset of like a sustainable approach where over the next 5 years, you're going to find yourself sitting at like, okay, maybe I'm pushing 160 now, but the same trend occurs, but it's more controlled. It's more kind of, there's less fluctuations and less variability. At this point, you kind of alluded to like those dinners and whatnot are tough to track because they're so dense
Hmm.
and other people are preparing them. You are
Hmm.
still tracking food now? Or do you just
So,
have that kind of like, I know that my lunches or my breakfast, lunch, and snack lead me to like 900 ish, and you just kind of go with that outline?
so yeah, I do. I think I stopped tracking around October, pretty much when we moved. We moved in the middle of October, and since then it was just, ugh. And then it was like into the holidays and all of that. So I just kind of, I still prepped my breakfast and lunch, so I still like knew. And then I've been tracking my calories for like over a decade. So like when I kind of look at it now, I know like, okay, this is that. But so I was still doing my meal prep, but I wasn't tracking like in macros first, which is way better than my Fitness Pal. Your other person said that too. And I was like, yes,
So much, so
yes,
much. I think I actually just had a check in today where somebody just started it for the first couple of weeks, and they're like, it took a while to get used to, but now it's so much better than my
it
Fitness
is.
Pal.
It really is. I mean, but yeah. So I started tracking again, like literally just last week, whatever the Saturday after Christmas is when I kind of got back like into it. Um, but yeah, I just between October and December just know. But until then, I was tracking.
So with the last week being kind of like the first like real time back into it, where have you landed from just a, not carbs, fats, but just calorie perspective total
So
for the day? Assuming the estimations for those dinners, you know what I mean?
around 20, well, we actually haven't been out too much because we got back from Christmas, so we had leftovers, and then we got sick,
And then
and now we're
everyone is
snowed
sick.
in, and now we're snowed in.
Nice.
So yeah, I've actually only been into the office once. It was last Friday I went to the office, and I won't be back again until Monday. So we haven't actually been out too much, but I've been around 2,200 calories. But
Okay.
that's like with because we still have truffles from Christmas and everything
And
else.
that's
So
included. You're
yeah,
logging
yeah, I'm
some
tracking
type of
all of that.
chocolate or something.
Oh, I scanned it. I got them.
And what have you noticed from like a weight scale perspective shift change? Are you getting on daily at
Uh,
this point?
uh, yeah, I've lost a pound, or I've lost a pound
Okay.
in a week.
So that to me is also another thing where I'm like, very interesting, very, in my opinion, positive in terms of your previous experience. Like comparing it
Hmm.
to the entirety of the time that we worked together, you averaged 2,100. And again, some of that was you losing, some of it was you maintaining, and some of it was the weight coming up a little bit. But now you're at an intake that's 100 calories above that per day, and you seem to be coming down, which in my opinion is a pretty encouraging realization to have, to say like, okay, if I really do want to be, cleaning it up, dialing up the adherence and consistency, creating a deficit again, and losing fat, if you don't necessarily care about the scale, but like being in a deficit and seeing those changes, having the genes fit better and what have you, that you don't have to go to like 1,600 calories, 1,700 calories to do so,
Yeah,
right? Like it might be as simple as, well, let me, if you want to make it a little bit more, aggressive, quote unquote, 2,000 calories per day, right?
yeah,
And have that be, if you do that between now and May, that's almost 5 entire months of, where are you going to be, you end at the end of that. And again, I'm looking at this from like that trend that you saw is fine, because everybody should go through phases, in my opinion. I don't think anybody
hmm,
should have like the ultimate objective of like, I'm going to lose X amount of weight and then just stay there, right? It's going to be, I'm going to year over year improve my health, fitness, body composition, or what have you, regardless of what the scale looks like. Sure, body fat percentage could come down, but that could be you being 165 for the next 5 years, but every single year you're 3% less body fat, right?
yeah,
And to make that happen, sometimes it's a gaining or rather a losing deficit phase, maintenance phase, or maybe slight growth. And then you just kind of like repeat that wave process. And if you're going about it in a sustainable way, where again, you're eating carbs throughout the week now, we haven't talked about what your training looks like, but we can get into that. And I'm assuming and hoping that that's going well and going consistent as well, or at least maybe you've picked back up with it at this point. Like the only outcome I see is favorable over this next couple of months.
Mhm.
And I have just a random idea too about simplifying how you are tracking those meals where, starting next Monday when you are back in the office or when the social things do pick up again, you have dinners out or whatnot. If those are very commonly occurring, where it's a dense, prepared by somebody other than you dinner, that could be something where you just create what's the right word I want to use here? Just like a placeholder almost for like when I have a meal like this, no matter what it really is, I'm always going to track it as 800 calories. It's going to always be 30 protein, 75 carb, and 45 fat, or something like that, right? Where it's
Mhm.
going to be a decent chunk of food that you're having to make room for, but you don't have to worry about the specifics of like, oh, well, this meal it was like a chicken parmesan, but the next time it's going to be some salmon dish, like
Yeah.
it doesn't really matter if you are accounting for close enough anyway the amount of calories, and that allow you to be more mindless with your tracking when it comes
Yeah.
to living life. You know what I mean? Because I think that that's what really is the challenge for most people, is like, how do I think about this stuff less? Like, how can I account for
Yeah.
what I'm doing without having to have my phone out every second, worry about every single thing that goes into my mouth? Do I have to scan it through an app? Yeah, that behavior can help establish the awareness, but you already have it. So
Mhm.
I threw out the 800 calorie number. You've probably estimated meals like that 100 times over the past couple of years. Would you say that that's
Yeah.
fairly accurate in terms of what a meal like that would look like for you, or what it would
Yeah.
add up to?
Yeah. Anywhere from 800 to 1300, I feel like.
1800 would be impressive, which not
No.
impossible if you also had like a slice of cheesecake on top of it or something, that could
Yeah.
happen, but that'd be
Yeah.
that'd be hefty.
Yeah. Two drinks, two
Right. It
appetizers,
could
an
add up.
entree, and then two desserts to share, and you just have them, and there you go.
Right. And
Yeah.
when you bring those things up, certainly there is a level of mindset shift that has to occur, right? Like
Hmm.
a flip has to switch. A switch has to flip to be kind of like, okay, I can't have all of the things.
Yeah.
You have to be in a dieting mindset to know that I
Hmm.
can't have the appetizer and the meal and the dessert and the drink if
And
I
the
want
drink.
to
Yeah.
control my calories, right? But having some type of system like that again simplifies the approach for accounting for what that is, paired with I'm being more mindful. Yeah, I'm going to be a little bit more reserved in terms of the picking off of all of the tapas that are around, right? Or
Yeah.
I'm only going to have one drink, and it's going to be, instead of like the full cocktail, I'm just going to ask for a diet
Vodka
drink
soda.
mixed with whatever. Yeah, exactly. So certainly there's kind of like first of the year, like I just got to get back on it type of
Hmm.
flip that has to switch. But I do think that since tracking is clearly the approach that has worked for you and
Yeah.
probably you'll continue to utilize, that might be it might make things less daunting for you as you go
Hmm.
about the time period between now and May, when you usually see the progress that you want to see, but do so in a way that's a little bit more enjoyable, loosen up the vice that it has on you, I guess. Have you ever, I don't think we tried that strategy before, right? With kind of just like the placeholder approach for the types of meals out. It was
Hmm.
more like uniquely estimate them or individually estimate them every time.
Yeah.
I'd be very curious if that works well. If you find that, it's actually accurate enough and you continue to lose and it's a lot easier, then great. If not, you obviously know you have the ability and capacity to, all right, I'll look at that, break it down ingredient by ingredient, see if I can
Yeah.
estimate the portion sizes. It's just more time consuming,
Hmm.
hopefully more than necessary.
Yeah.
Now, I assumed that while all this is happening from a nutritional standpoint, the overall activity level and exercise and whatnot is still similar as well. Is that the case?
Yeah, I took the week of Christmas, I took off, but we were like at an Airbnb and it was in the snow. So we like went on a walk, that was the big activity
That's
we
right. That's
did.
the exercise for the holidays.
Yeah, yeah. But no, I that's the only week I took off. So I'm pretty for sure Monday, Tuesday, at least 4 days a week. I do resistance training or some sort of like weight training. And one day I'll do some kind of cardio, even if it's only like running a mile. And then I might have my dog, so we walk at least 2 miles a day. Not all at once, just when I take her on walks. Well, at least 2 miles a day. And I started running. I'm a runner girl now. I bought running shoes and everything. And I hate it. Like
There
I
she
have
goes.
never, yeah, I never ran. So I started like the beginning of November. I haven't ran since like December 31st because we've been sick and now snowed in. But I think I may have went on the 4th. I don't remember. But so I also run anywhere from 3 to 4 times a week, depending on my social calendar and the weather, because I don't really enjoy treadmill running.
And what do those look like from like a mileage and I guess pace standpoint, like
So
intensity level
3 miles is my regular out and a mile
loop?
and a half out, mile and a half back. And depending on like just everything, anywhere from 33 minutes to 43 minutes is my. So I do walks and I'm not like running the entire time. I like run, walk, jog, kind of the whole
So it's not
deal.
super intense. You're not
Not
like
yet. Not
done with
yet.
it being like completely taxed.
No, 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 no.
The
I
main
don't do
reason I
anything like
ask
that.
is because one thing that I would say is fairly common. I see it happen when there's some type of additional exercise that gets added on, whether it be resistance training sessions or running. I
Hmm.
guess arguably probably more common with running, but has there been a shift in now you are hungrier throughout the day, throughout the week, kind of just underlying baseline hunger increase?
Right when I started, because right when I started, the weather was nicer. It was the beginning of November. So the weather was much nicer in November and we were running more often, me and my friend. And so initially, yes, I was trying to eat like more protein and carbs too, but it was more of like but yeah, yes, I was hungry.
So, yeah, I think that that can obviously play a role in the difficulty of eating consistently because, that could push you over that threshold. If you're right on the line of, yeah, I could go out to eat and make the quote unquote right choice, or
Hmm.
just say, F it, I'm going to eat all of the things, right? And you'd be more likely to be on the left side of that if you aren't, or there isn't that external hunger that is now creeping up. But then now you're just past that threshold of like, oh, more often I'm giving in, so to speak, which is why it's not really giving in. You're influenced by all these other factors. That's the hunger's there for a reason. Lots of
Hmm.
people just think it's like on them that, oh, I just don't have willpower or I just can't make good
Hmm.
decisions. Is well, you have to think about why there's what's influencing those choices. That certainly could be one, and that makes a little bit more sense too as to why your calories are slightly higher while still seeing the scale kind of come down, because that's your baseline activity level is likely a little bit elevated now as well, which makes me even actually want to alter my just generalized recommendation of, hey, if you want to increase the rate of loss, go to like 2000. Maybe don't even do that right away until you decide, find that if you're going to keep losing right now at 2200, I would say don't change anything, because going down might spike that hunger like pretty quickly.
Yeah, because I haven't ran since the new year, since I've been like tracking
Right,
like
since you started that
consistently.
intake.
Yeah, so I definitely would I think we're gonna go tomorrow and Friday. I'm gonna run maybe tomorrow because it's gonna snow again on Saturday. So I don't know. Tomorrow or Friday we'll end up running at some point. So I'm gonna kind of pay attention to like how I'm feeling because yeah, I haven't got to experience that for like
Right.
paying attention yet.
I would definitely encourage that to be your constant baseline at this point, and don't reduce that until you know that the biofeedback is going to also be constant, because you're going to be in a bigger deficit just by adding the running back in. But again, if that's the outcome, if that's what happens, next week you start running again, you do 3 sessions, 3 miles, and you're eating 2,200 calories and you start losing again. I keep repeating myself, but that trend this year in 2025 is a positive, like
Hmm.
better starting point than even last year was. And we know that last year was a better starting point than the years prior. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So I look at that as a kind of like a good thing year over year. If these types of things keep improving, your starting points, quote unquote, keep improving, then you're succeeding in the long run. And I say that, anybody else listening doesn't have the experience that I do with working with you in the past, but I'm like picturing in my mind, I don't have them pulled up, but I'm picturing the starting pictures from the beginning when we started, and the body composition changes that we saw into the summer. It was pretty substantial and pretty drastic in terms of putting those side by side. So if
Yes.
your ending pictures then are somewhat similar to your starting pictures now, or your
Hmm.
current body now, again, that's another bit of proof basically of you're moving forward the way you would actually want to be moving forward, right?
Yeah.
So would you say that if you had to, you probably haven't been taking pictures necessarily if
Mm-mm.
you're not checking in, but comparing July of last year to now, similar from like a body composition standpoint? I would assume so, given your training has remained mostly consistent.
Yeah. I think it would be I think it would be pretty similar.
Were there, I'm trying to think back to as well, if there's any other kind of more abstract metrics that you could lean into in terms of the changes that have made. Like you brought up genes specifically, right? So the beginning of 2024, January 2024 versus like jeans that you are wearing now, are those different? Are those different sizes? Do those fit differently? Because they definitely would have been from January to July.
They definitely were fitting like in. Oh, I'm sorry. Hang on. We made popsicles, and they're not frozen yet. And she tried to get one herself, and it
Oh,
came
just
out. It went everywhere.
yeah,
It's
we
okay.
have a lot of those with applesauce and yogurt pouches at this point, where when we put the things on the top that's supposed to stop them from being able to like squish it out, but either she'll just rip that off or just like squeeze it so hard and it just goes
Squeeze
over. I'm
it.
like,
Yeah.
and Sawyer will lick up most of it. We have like a cleanup crew, but yeah, like the couch, the floor. It's having a child is a
It's
new
wild, eh?
experience, that's for sure. It's
It's wild.
crazy.
Okay. But yeah, so we were talking about fitting in my
Yeah,
jeans.
what I essentially was getting at here was trying to bring the conversation back to ultimately what your objective is with, feeling better in your body, in clothes at this point. Just trying to find some, relative vantage points there to see like, okay, have they been improving? But also just get us on the, in the right framework and the right mindset of, okay, moving forward though, how do we make sure that that improves, right? And does get better. So I really, I think, was just trying to see if you were in agreement that this starting point compared to the past, like January's, is a more favorable one.
Yeah, I think I have. Yes. Like I don't know. Like I think I have a lot more. Not direction, but it's a word I'm looking for. Like after working together, I have more confidence. I don't know what is
I think that's that, or I mean, you could just say knowledge, awareness,
knowledge.
self-efficacy. You know what I mean? Like, yeah,
Yeah.
you kind of know how to go about it. I mean, even if we never had this conversation at all, you've already are at a place where, okay, I've tracked again. I'm at 2,200 calories. I'm seeing the scale go down a pound
Yeah.
in that period of time. I'm going to add running back in. Nothing that we've just discussed is revolutionary because I mean we've discussed it in the past, we've done it in the past,
Yeah.
right? But that's what I'm kind of trying to get at in terms of me just looking from the outside in. I'm like, in 3 months, I think you're going to see the positive change that you want to see without
Yeah.
necessarily changing anything that you're doing now.
Yeah.
Does
But
that make
I'm
sense?
wondering what's going to happen in 6 months.
Right
Because in
after
3 months, I
May,
know I
right?
can do it for 3 months.
Right after
But yeah,
your
can I?
birthday into the summer again. So that's where I think again the simplifying the flexibility component of your structure and your system with your nutrition, because that's the main variable. It's not the training, right? That's constant for the most part. It's going to be the like, okay, I go from structured with a little bit of flexibility to come June or whatever, it's flexibility with a little bit of structure. So if there is a more simplified and less burdensome approach now at the starting point with that flexibility, maybe there is less of a trigger or keystone element or time point, time point, I guess, come birthday, come May, that maybe the summer doesn't look different because you've felt really, really comfortable with the flexibility that you've had all the way up through then, because of the dinners, because of the being able to eat out and still be losing during it, which did happen last year as
Hmm.
well, right? Like it's not like
Yeah.
that period of time, that chunk was I just stopped eating out. It was
Yeah.
inclusive then too,
Yeah.
but maybe more simplified this time. So it's, I think, less burdensome is the best way to put it.
Yeah.
Takes up
Because
less mental resources, I guess.
yeah, because it's discouraging, like going out all the time and never knowing. So then I'm like, oh, what's the point? Like,
Right. Is it
it's
worth
almost like
it?
a
That's
couple
the
times a
question.
week. Yes. Yes.
And so, again, it's kind of a gamble because I don't know if that 800 calorie placeholder that I suggested is going to cover all of your bases there. It may not. But my guess is that it does enough times that you can just roll with that. And maybe sometimes you do go over, sometimes you're below that. At the end of the day, it averages out. And if you're able to successfully lose while doing that, again, if you're utilizing less mental resources to achieve that progress over the course of the next 6 months, maybe it doesn't feel like there has to be like okay, now I need to go back into ultra flexibility mode because you didn't drain your resources during the time leading up to it.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? And I mean,
Yeah.
that's a very simple, basic approach to changing your dieting. But I think that that's my general strategy as a coach and always has been. Like, choose the small, basic, right in front of your face things first,
Yeah.
always see if they work, and then experiment with the more kind of like meticulous, aggressive things. Because if you can get away with less, why would you not? Because again, you always have the fallback of, okay, well then track every single calorie to the gram
Yeah.
and you know it'll work. But that's been the repeated approach that has led to, I'm not doing this during the summer. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you very well may be able to have the placeholder strategy throughout the summer. And maybe that's the difference in 2025, that you don't find that it's this trend over and over again, but rather a more constant, reality perpetually. Maybe that's the rest of your life, and it's
That
wishful
would be
thinking,
nice.
but
That would be nice.
yeah. So I would start there. Is there anything else that's just one element, right, of your eating out, those meals? Maybe we haven't discussed at all the structure of your, normal at home breakfast, lunch, snacks that could be maybe reformulated to provide more of a buffer that allows, more of those calories to then be distributed to those meals that you are just estimating or accounting for with the placeholder. I'd imagine they're pretty solid and stable at this point, like your standard breakfast and snacks, other than the chocolates, around right now, but like normal
Yeah.
time period, right? And next
Yeah.
week, moving on from now.
Yeah. Ugh. This was supposed to be a normal week, and that all got thrown out the
Right.
window.
Aren't they all?
I mean, that's always how it feels. Like our first week back was a snow week, and now we're just all sitting at home, which is fine. I mean, I'm good with being at home, but yeah, so normal. But yeah, I mean, I do try and change it up a little bit just because I'm not like getting bored.
Right. Literally eating the same exact thing over and over and over again.
I'm sorry, I'm still coughing from being sick. Yeah, so before it was like a chicken salad with like Dave's bread or whatever, but now I've got salmon and kale and sweet potatoes is what I'm doing this week. I'm trying to change it up. And then I added an avocado today, so I'm still playing with my, because I like food, so I'm still kind of playing with my bowl, if you will.
Right. The things that you're pairing together.
Yes, but I mean it's always like a fiber, a vegetable, a protein source. Like the macros are pretty standard.
Yeah. Yeah. And it sounds like those are already in line with, again, the behavior switch that needs to flip for like, I need to make sure that these meals are not only healthy, but also that they are in alignment with not an uncontrollable amount of calories. Just discussing all of that, I feel like there's not a tremendous amount that should alter all that much. You know what I mean? There
No,
would be like
no.
a really obvious, well, you don't have staple meals that you eat frequently that are balanced. You do. You don't have control over the amount of calories most of the time. You do. It's really just that, how do I account for those deviations and those variations from
Hmm.
the eating out and whatever when they come up, just the social aspect of life? That's why I keep coming back to, I think that that's the simplest way to go about it, to do something different right now, to see the same outcome that you've
Hmm.
seen before, but in a way that is potentially more sustainable, because that's going to be, if nothing else, but more present, more frequent 6 months from now. Right.
Yeah,
So yeah, I think that makes the most sense to me, but I'm at home 99.9999% of the time. You know what I mean? So I'm curious if that's, just hearing that on your end, is that like a worth trying type of intervention?
for sure. Because it takes a lot of pressure off of it. Because that's kind of why the fluctuations always happen. Because I'm always like, I track every day. Like, not the week of Christmas, I stopped tracking. But like, even if you look at my calorie counter from 10 years ago to today, almost every day, something will be logged. But then at some point during the day, I'm like, okay, this is too much. Like,
Right.
okay,
More things
I've
go
forgotten.
untracked for a period
Yes,
of
the
time.
more and more. And then like, every maybe like the first Monday of the month, like it might start really well again and then it'll kind of okay, or like every Monday to Wednesday, everything's super tracked and then kind of start to fall off. And so,
It's just making more and more sense to me to try this approach, like to go
yeah.
into macros first, create I don't think it's recipe. I think recipe would be putting individual ingredients in like
Hmm.
a easily trackable with one click, but
Hmm.
create a meal
Hmm.
that you can just like repeatedly log that meal and have that be title it whatever you want to title it, right? But it'd be like
Yeah.
meal out or whatever, just
Yeah.
dinner, and have it be that 800 calories with just the estimated proteins, carbs, and fats, and just let it be what it is. You could take that a step further eventually, and maybe this is what happens come May or June, where it's also a snack button, a
Hmm.
drink button, that it's kind of, I still want to be accountable for how much I'm consuming, but I'm not going to
Hmm.
track every drink that I have over the summer. I'm not going to track every bite of chips or whatever that I end up having, but I can assume and anticipate that I'm going to have 150 calories worth of usually or otherwise untracked snacks. Why don't I
Hmm.
just put a button in there that I'm going to include that every
Yeah.
single day? Or
Yeah.
whoever's listening to this that's a developer for one of these apps, there should be a setting that you can just put to say
Right.
like pre-track 150 calories every day,
Hmm.
which now that I say that out loud, it would just be, well, if you're going to do that, just reduce your target intake by
Target. Yeah.
150. But anyway,
But it
that
might
could
not be
be
every day.
exactly, that's a simplified way for you to controllably do it, intentionally do it, but it's so much more simple than look up Lay's potato chips or go find the
Hmm.
bag, scan it in. Like, no, just assume it's going to be that 150 calories. I actually have a post idea that's similar to this that I want to do. It just requires somebody to come film me, and with the baby, it's tough. So if anybody's listening to this, don't steal my idea. But I want to go to Costco one day and bring my food scale, weigh out every single one of the samples that I go around to, and try all of them that are available. So it's like one bite of everything, weigh it out, scan the food item, and see what the total calories ends up being, and have that be representative of, hey, if you're at a July 4th party, if you're at a potluck where there's just like little things everywhere and you try a little bit and you make a plate, about how many calories do you think you've just consumed? Well, here's an estimate for you. And then you could make a button for that, right? Create a meal for that. This is just my boom. I went to a potluck. Good enough. I've tracked it, and that's the
Yeah.
placeholder. If you use that now and then use additional ones during the summer, maybe that allows you to keep tracking every day like you have been, but be more accountable with less mental effort, less mental resources. To me, that sounds really, really doable, really realistic,
Yeah.
but we'll see if that's true come May. You know what I mean? You
I'll,
might be
I'll
in a
let you
completely
know.
different place. I hope you do, because the whole point of this is to hopefully actually make an impact and not just kind of like throw random things out there. Like, I hope that it does actually lead to a different summer experience than you are clearly like worrisome and fearful of right now. Hopefully less so after this
I mean,
conversation. If
I'm not necessarily fearful of it. Like I love my summers and like my whole, I enjoy my life. That's why I've created it this way. But yeah, it's like, oh, here we go again. So maybe it won't
right,
be
I
here we
guess, yeah,
go again.
fearful of the outcome,
Yeah.
or at least
Yeah.
the absence of a different outcome,
Yeah.
which there's got to be a
Yeah.
different way to put that, like
Repeating the cycle.
eating the same thing over and over again, which is why I kind of kept saying beforehand, like, I think the trend is, if you look at it differently, it's actually kind of a good thing, because you are starting at a better place every single time it begins. But maybe this one does end up being different because it is less taxing during that ramp up period between now and May. Any other random questions, updates, things you want to pick my brain on while we're still on the call?
I don't know. Now I feel like I'm on the spot.
Yeah, I
I
know
don't
it's tough,
I don't know.
right?
I don't have anything.
Now you're in the hot seat, and yeah, I mean, just want to make sure that if there is something, I can provide some insight, even if it is just random suggestions, like estimate your meals out.
No, but I'm loving your podcast, by the way. I did want to say, like, I don't consume any new content currently because I feel overwhelmed with the amount of new content. But I've been listening to, like, I feel like your podcast is like the only new content that I've consumed myself. I watched two TV shows, but with my husband, and like that's enough for me.
Yeah, I appreciate that, because I feel the same way.
There's
Kind of
just
on the
so much.
flip side of creating, maybe it's more of the short form content, like thinking of an idea for an Instagram post, filming it, putting it up, to have it be flooded with a million other posts that got posted that day, and it's kind of like just rinse and repeat every day. So to me, I'm burnout. This is easier.
Yeah.
I'd rather just sit and speak with somebody,
Yeah.
talk through. I mean, this is kind of what I do on a daily basis anyway. And I think it's obviously more personal, but also more impactful, because if for nothing else, like, okay, you might feel better going off on your own now after this call, but somebody else listening might kind of be like, oh, I never thought about it that way. Like in
Yeah.
my mind, coming out of my mouth, yeah, it's so simple. Create a placeholder for tracking, estimating meals. Like somebody hasn't thought about that.
Yeah.
So
I
it's going to
haven't thought
help
about that.
somebody.
Yeah.
Well,
No, I
good.
loved
I'm
your
glad.
the one you did before with the girl that she's running, and I was like, oh my gosh, I just started running. This is great. Like,
There's
so
not
yeah, yeah,
enough relatable long form, I guess, content that's so I'm glad. I appreciate that. I hope that I've got calls scheduled through at least February, a good mix. I think there's only one other person who I have previously worked with. Everyone else are just like, people I've never actually spoken with before, which I think is cool. I've never heard of anybody
yeah,
else do this before where, hey, just it does bring me back to kind of radio call shows where people, hey, caller, call in and I'll give you financial advice or whatever. But I guess everything comes in cycles, right? People redo fashion, redo all types of ideas. I don't see this happening often. So hopefully other
no,
people feel the same way as you.
I think it's great.
So yeah, if you appreciate this, if you found these discussions helpful, be sure to subscribe on whatever platform it is that you tune in. And remember that when it comes to your health and fitness goals, there are no right answers. There's only nuance. I'm John Knoll. Thanks for listening.